I would say that the quick win and the only way to really tackle that problem is to introduce AI-driven, intelligent systems, tools to help you with that. I would say that is the only way, because it's such a complex topic, but it doesn't need to be complex for the human, because there is software and there is AI that can handle the complexity. So even though the topic might seem daunting, complex, how do I even start? Well, the good news is that the tools will help you.
Welcome to Decision Loop, the podcast from RELEX Solutions, where we speak with the experts driving transformation across retail, manufacturing and consumer goods. From AI pilots at scale to data readiness, governance and the human side of automation, this show is your signal through the noise. On this episode of Decision Loop, we explore how inefficiencies across planning, production and supply chains quietly erode profitability, and how AI helps organisations uncover and eliminate them. I'm joined by Svante Göthe, Head of Sustainability at RELEX Solutions, to discuss how better forecasting, system-level visibility and cross-functional alignment turn waste reduction into a competitive edge. Let's get into it. Welcome, Svante, to this Decision Loop podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today. So I'm going to, first of all, ask you a bit of a question about if there was anything in your life that you would love to delegate to an AI, something that was autonomous, what would it be? What would you like to get rid of from your daily life? And it could be personal or it can be also professional.
Yeah, I think it's quite easy, with couple of kids at home, a gazillion different sports activities, all day long, and work feels like the time between work and going to bed is all about doing a lot of chores. It's groceries, it's cooking, it's driving here and there, it's laundry, it's cleaning. So I would be happy to have a smart AI humanoid here at home who would do all of that. And also get the kids up from bed every morning, because that's a 1.5 hour nightmare each morning. So I would be happy to delegate that. Yeah.
The school run, I do remember that, and that was
Yeah.
always a bit of a panic, especially when one of the kids had forgotten their sort of rucksack, and then we'd have to go and rush back for it, because it was like always a bit of a panic. So
Yeah,
I hear you. Being a parent,
yeah.
it's 24/7. I'm going to start the conversation with some stats. So I've got them here. So apologies, going to have to read them off. But okay, the first one is US retail is sitting on 740 billion of unsold stock, according to McKinsey. They have a greater than 5% in operating margin is lost by 70% of retailers due to in-store inefficiencies. That's according to Coresight. This is a BCG. This is Boston Consulting Group, a big one. By 2030, 1.5 trillion in loss will be lost in value due to food waste, and 6% of that is lost in distribution and retail. So there's some huge stats all about waste. So my first question is really, what do we mean by waste? Is it financial waste, or is it things like food waste, sustainability? What is it?
That's a good question, and I think what first comes to mind when we think about waste is it's the physical waste. So it's wasted products, unsold, obsolete products, or wasted materials in production. Of course, we have other types of physical waste as well, like packaging. But yeah, I think the physical waste is the top of mind waste. But as maybe your question suggests, I think there are other types of waste as well that we may not always consider as waste. But just to name a few examples, we have labor inefficiency, sort of wasted work hours, a huge one. Around 50% of the operational cost of a retailer might come from the workforce. So of course, any small inefficiencies lead to huge sort of wasted hours and wasted money. Then we have transport, logistics, waste, if you will. That could be driving around with half-filled trucks, doing unnecessary stops or back and forth between warehouses or from store to store or from production plant to warehouse and so on. I think maybe those are the sort of three main categories, but you can even still expand that to let's say, wasted margin, wasted profits. If you're overstocking items, you need to do markdowns, clearance sales. You're wasting your margin. So I think there are a lot of different sort of angles to the term.
Okay, so given that there's so much value being lost in terms of hours, time, financial value, everything, where does this sit in terms of retailers and manufacturers' priorities? Because it always seems to me that it's in good years, it goes to the top. And then in tough years, it goes right down to the bottom of the list of priorities. So where does it sit in the priorities today?
I think it sits up high, but maybe the problem is that, as said, and as we talked in the last question, that because waste is it's not only one thing, it's different things, and it spawns across different departments, functions, teams. So it's quite scattered all over the organization. So it's can be quite hard to sort of get the full picture and understand the full true cost of all waste. And I think that's maybe the main challenge here.
What are the drivers at the moment? Why should our listeners care about waste, or why do they care about waste? Is it, if you look at sort of, the social drivers, the technological drivers, or is it a political driver? What's driving this? Is it regulation or is it consumers?
It's a mix of a lot of things, but most definitely it has to do with profitability and cutting costs. And that should always be high up on the list for every company, reducing unnecessary cost. And this is what waste deals with. Cutting waste deals with exactly that. So I mean, having waste sort of directly impacts your profitability. It sort of directly shows in the bottom line. So that's a no-brainer. But I also think that there's more and more pressure from both regulation and legislation, but also from consumers for companies to be act more sustainably. And that's why waste is such a sort of grateful topic, because it's not only a sustainability initiative, it has sort of direct impact to profitability as well. So it's in the nice sweet spot between let's say financial and environmental sustainability.
And there's quite a few, new directives coming out, and obviously in the EU, you've got various, but also in America, it's starting to roll out that, let's say, for manufacturers, that they have to, um, I suppose, preempt the problem because they have to think about the circularity of the waste that they're producing in their packaging. So there is quite a lot of regulatory pressure coming at the moment. But my question really is around also consumers. I wonder, when it comes to waste, do they care more about price than waste? When it comes to the crux of it, how much do consumers really care about waste?
So I think it's a mix of things. We did a quite large survey last year here at RELEX, discussing with or polling consumers in the US and the UK on the topics of waste, food waste, and sustainability. And I think the results show, on one hand, that customers are sort of really looking into or would prefer buying their groceries from companies that are tracking waste and have ambitious goals to it and reporting on it. But it also shows a bit of discrepancy that customers are not always trusting what the companies are saying in a way. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there as well.
Okay, so I want to get into sort of the meat of this now, which is really sort of like providing some practical advice for our listeners. So waste, it's often termed as a wicked problem. So one thing that is so huge and overwhelming, it's going to take society to overcome. Bringing that down to a practical level, if something is so overwhelming, what advice could we give to manufacturers or retailers to help them reduce waste?
Waste is a lot of different things, but if we firstly would focus and think about the like physical waste, so wasted products, wasted wasted materials, and all of that, what we have been doing for many years and are continuing to do is to help hundreds of clients with better supply chain planning, and I think that's the start of it all. And that it's on itself is a huge topic, but it all starts with good forecasting. Without having a solid foundation of sort of predictability in your business, you cannot really do anything else either. And their AI technologies really help by enriching the forecast with a lot of data, because as you probably know, I mean, demand for a single item in a single store, it can depend on so many different factors. And as a human, you cannot factor in all of those. If you think about, let's say you're a retailer and you have thousands of stores and 10,000s of SKUs in each store, well, it's impossible to keep track of all of that. So I would say at the very core foundation is to get your forecasting right, and their AI certainly can help and produce that. But then, of course, I mean, forecast is only the sort of beginning. With only a forecast, you cannot do anything. Then you need to sort of build on top of that your whole other planning processes as well.
So it's really about preventing waste in the first place, would you say? If you get your forecasts right, you're able to sort of minimize uncertainty.
If you get your forecast right, you're on your way to reducing waste. But then you need to add pieces to the puzzle, the whole planning puzzle. Forecasting alone doesn't fix it yet.
So, are there any, I mean, I'm just thinking, because this is such a huge problem, are there any quick wins? And what's the long-term strategy as well?
If we think about, if we still stay on the topic of this sort of physical product waste, I would say that the quick win and the only way to really tackle that problem is to introduce AI-driven intelligent systems, tools to help you with that. I would say that is the only way, because it's such a complex topic, but it doesn't need to be complex for the human, because there is software and there is AI that can handle the complexity. So even though the topic might seem daunting, complex, how do I even start? Well, the good news is that the tools will help you. Very simply put, having the right, the classic, having the right product at the right place at the right time. Sounds so easy, but it's hard. Impossible for a human trying to do it with some legacy systems or even manual processes, but not impossible at all for AI-driven tools.
Have you got any wins that you can think of? Any retailers or manufacturers who have managed to reduce costs? To give some examples to the listeners out there.
Yeah, I mean, we have multiple examples. I mean, we deal with 500-600 customers across the globe, and I think from the start, one of our sort of foundations has been to help our customers reduce waste. But let's say on the manufacturing side, for example, we have a couple of nice examples. For example, Blount Fine Foods in the US, food manufacturer, where we really help them reduce waste by around 30% in their production process. And we have multiple similar examples from retailers and wholesalers around the globe where we have done exactly that. So I mean, typically what we see in our implementations is a typical waste reduction range would be somewhere between 10 to 40%, but we also have a lot of examples that are higher than that.
And once again, when you talk about waste, what do you mean by that? Is that reducing food waste or what kind of waste?
Yeah, in these examples, food waste, yes, partly because, of course, waste exists in all industries, all type of businesses. Of course, it's most prominent in businesses with short shelf life products. And these are also notoriously the most tricky to handle, because you cannot really, if it becomes obsolete, it's not only, not in fashion anymore, it's actually unsellable because it goes bad. So here we have a good track record of dealing with these, hard to manage products and delivering results.
I have another example from another company where, so they had the traveling salesperson's problem. So the traveling salesman problem, which was they had service engineers out on the road servicing various sort of mechanical, electrical products in all of their different outlets. And AI was used to do their route planning. And as a result of that, not only did they get more jobs done, but also in terms of reducing mileage, they reduced enough mileage to get to the moon and back. And so there's one, you've reduced costs. Two, you've made your engineers more productive because they're managing to do more jobs. And then the third one, you've managed to reduce CO2 emissions. So it's a win-win, basically.
Exactly. We have one nice example from Germany as well, where a grocery retailer, not only did we manage to affect waste and cut waste, but also, as you say, affect the transport efficiency as well. And the customer actually measured around 25% reduction in mileage and emissions due to better planning. So it's, I said, waste is a multifaceted thing, and there are ways to sort of affect all aspects of that with smart AI planning.
In terms of looking ahead, do you think that AI will fundamentally shift how retailers and manufacturers view waste as potentially, rather than as a burden, like a cost burden in terms of having to deal with it, AI will help shift the attitudes to actually, shift their mindset to thinking of this more as a way of reducing costs through operational excellence. Because I wonder if that at the moment is how it's viewed. It's like, it's a burden that I've got to deal with, as opposed to, okay, this is an opportunity for us to actually achieve operational excellence and potentially competitive advantage.
First of all, I think what AI will do is that, if reflecting back to the beginning, where you said that waste is a daunting thing, and it's so much, what can we do about it? I think AI will more and more be able to handle things autonomously.
Don't worry. Autonomously.
Autonomously. So what I mean by this is, like, if you look at traditional planning systems, you might be able to pull some, backward looking reports and say, okay, this happened. We had a lot of waste. So what? And then we take the next generation of that, which is, okay, this happened, and this is the reason for it. So their sort of AI has already been able to assist with, okay, this happened, we had this waste, and these actually, because it's a complex topic, it's always a complex topic, and then AI can help with saying, okay, but this waste happened because of this reason. But then we jump on to the next level of AI, thinking about the agentic AI, where AI can start doing things on its own. So not only saying that, well, this happened, this was the reason, but actually acting on it and looking at forecasting the future, saying, okay, we have potential problem coming here. We have, potential waste due to this and this and this, and also acting on that information on its own. So changing, inventory parameters, affecting the forecasting parameters, pricing, promotions, whatever it is that is causing the potential problems, and acting on it. So I think AI will help even more than before in freeing up time and sort of making the problem smaller, because acting on it before it even happens, but also freeing up time for the experts, the humans, to do more value adding tasks. So I think that is one huge part of it.
I mean, if you read some of these reports that come out from, let's say, from the UN or anything like that, there's quite a bit of doom and gloom if we don't do anything about it now type thing, or in terms of food waste and things like that. But from what you're saying, are you optimistic about the pace of change?
I always like to bring up because RELEX is originally from Finland. We have a quite strong customer base in grocery when it comes to Finland, almost the whole market. And looking at the Finnish food waste statistics, there is this big UN sustainable goals package of different sustainability goals, and one of them is halving food waste by 2030. So that's a global thing. But looking at the Finnish food waste statistics, in Finland, the food waste in the retail wholesale sector has been almost already halved in the recent couple of, I guess, 5 or 6 years. Meaning that even though it has been on a sort of quite good level globally speaking already some years ago, it has still been able, the companies have still been able to have it. And this is something that we're seeing all over the world, where companies are sort of publicly committing to these targets and acting upon them. And I just think the Finnish country level statistics show that it's not a utopia, something that you just say because you need to say it, but then it's impossible to achieve. It's very achievable.
So, to sum up today's conversation for our listeners, I think the key things that I'm taking out from this is that waste is both food waste, but also sustainability waste, but it's also operational waste as well. And the key things are to start with forecasting and then look for opportunities to reduce waste in supply chain. For example, sending products on holidays around distribution centers. And then the final thing is that AI can help overcome what is a daunting, complex problem. So it is hopeful, and it's great to see that you are optimistic about the future. So it's great that we can end up on a hopeful note. So thank you for joining me today, Svante. You've been listening to Decision Loop, a podcast by RELEX Solutions. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and share it with someone navigating the next era of intelligent planning. And for more insights on enterprise transformation, be sure to visit relexsolutions.com. And remember, in a world powered by AI, better decisions make the difference.